Treat for you this week on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. We're doing something that, honestly, we have done before, but we're going to do it rarely from here on out. We've got two races to preview on the horse racing front for you with the Arkansas Derby and also the Florida Derby. Myself, Luke Elder, as always, alongside Tom Collins. I hope you're ready, Tom. Stamina sapping stuff today.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can get it all out in the same kind of time as we do one podcast, as in two races for the price of one, similar kind of length of video. But yeah, two very good races we have to cover. This was a week where we could either go the Arkansas Derby or the Florida Derby. They're both very good. I mean, we can't just ditch one of them, can we?
No, absolutely not. And I think there will be people out there that will argue which is the better race because both of them are good. The Florida Derby maybe has more class in it. The Arkansas Derby likely has more depth in it. So it's something that we will very much be tackling and hopefully putting up a couple of winners between ourselves. Last week, we took value. We went for big prices. We managed to get some each way money. I think the main thing is that we put everyone away from the two favourites for the race and they both bombed.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's the plus side. The negatives, obviously, we didn't find Tistastic, but your selection ran really well in second. A great pick there, and kind of unfortunate to lose insofar as Joel Rosario on the winner was A+. It was a brilliant ride from Rosario. Managed to sneak up the inside, save all the ground, sit off a fast pace, and finish with aplomb and win the contest on Tistastic for Steve Asmussen. Not necessarily a tough horse to find, but I don't think he was the easiest. That was quite clearly a career best.
No, it was a horse that Tom did put up in the Rebel a couple of starts ago now, but one at a nice price. Well done to anyone who did back at Tistastic. He looks a nice sort. I think Chunk of Gold is going to Turfway next in a couple of weeks' time to try and get into the Kentucky Derby. So we'll at least see Chunk of Gold in the near future.
Yeah, that'll be a good indicator, I suppose, albeit it's on the all-weather at Turfway rather than dirt. So we'll have to find out if he handles that as well as he does dirt. There was a race at Turfway on Saturday. I don't know if you saw, where Final Gambit came through to win for Brad Cox and Juddmonte. That horse could be going to the Kentucky Derby now. But again, with every Turfway race, it's always a completely different surface. Horses are then overhyped when they go back on dirt. So with him, I think it's to be seen. But he looks a nice prospect as well.
Name the Kentucky Derby winner that raced at Turfway.
Do you know what's funny about this? I got asked the exact same question on Saturday. I gave the correct answer, and literally I can't even remember.
Good job. It was Rich Strike.
Rich Strike, that's it.
He was beat like twice, I think, at Turfway and just looked like a no-hoper and got into the Derby. And yeah, that was Rich Strike. But weird that you're getting asked that same question in the space of a week.
I know. Never asked before, and then twice in the space of about 4 days. Crazy.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Arkansas Derby, where we will hopefully see a few nice horses in the offing. Look, we've got Cornucopian making his reappearance. He's currently 11-10 in the international markets. Cole Battle is 4-1, 9-2 for Sandman, 9-1 regards to Publisher and Speed King, 20-1 and bigger the rest. I made the point to you a little while ago, Tom, or last week, that the Rebel, I thought at this stage was the strongest Kentucky Derby sort of prep race or trial race. It's going to be very much on trial itself in this spot because you've got Cornucopian to deal with, and Cornucopian's one of the talking horses for the Derby itself.
Yeah, it's literally Cornucopian versus the Rebel field. You've got 5 horses coming out of the Rebel in this race. Cornucopian 1-1 so far in his career. So it's an interesting contest, and I think it is a good tester to see how good Cornucopian is. As you say, the Rebel form looks pretty strong, or solid at the very least, and the fact now you're pitching in the Bob Baffert trainee into this race, we'll really get to find out how good he is at this stage of his career. Still very immature, still very raw, of course, but he's a 7-5 shot on the morning line. I mean, that is short enough in a race that seems pretty deep. He's going to be up there with the pace, isn't he, from the outset? Draws out wide in this race, Cornucopian. It'll be interesting to see what kind of position and how fast they go early.
He does, albeit what's going to go forward with him? He looked fast on debut, but the thing I liked about him is that he was over 6 furlongs. He was clearly going too hard for himself in the early part of the race, in that he was being really asked to run by Ira Ortiz Jr., but he was still doing it, and then he quickened away. There's tons of ability there. This trip will suit him more, but something's got to have to race him early on.
I think it's going to be Speed King. He's the other horse that's going to try to make all the running. And if he does, I imagine they'll go around the first turn next to each other. Cornucopian just on the shoulder, given his wide gait, and Speed King inside, considering he breaks from 5. I don't expect them to go searing early gallop. I think it will be solid through the half, and from there, every horse will have a chance. Cornucopian, as you say, in that debut run was over 6 furlongs. So not only has he got to prove his quality, stepping up from a maiden into the Arkansas Derby, but he's got to prove he stays the distance, which I don't really think is going to be a big question mark at this stage. It looks like he will stay. But there are several other factors that he also has to prove. Lasix off for the first time here. Stretches out, as I say, better opposition. And also, you've got to factor in the price. Traders and morning line and punters out in America especially, they're going to think Bob Baffert's got a horse in this race. He's opted for Cornucopian, a one-start maiden winner instead of Barnes. Cornucopian's beaten Barnes in a recent work. This horse has got to win. Therefore, you're going to get such a skinny price about a horse that has so much to prove. I think you've got to oppose him, haven't you?
Well, that's it. 11-10. Regards to a horse that's raced once is very short going into a race like this. The Arkansas Derby year after year is a feeder, not necessarily towards Kentucky Derby winners, but towards horses that run very well in the race. That said, you can count on one hand every single year how many horses first time out can put up a bare speed figure of 3 figures.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he looked very good, didn't he, on the debut? I'm taking nothing away from that performance, and I do think he's very talented. But to win the Arkansas Derby second time up, or Derby, I should say, second time up, it's very tough. People just expect Bob Baffert horses to win these trials, and they do 9 times out of 10, especially pre his ban from the Derby and Churchill Downs itself. But I just don't know. I don't think you're getting much value here. He may well go and win, but I'm happy to let him beat me at that price.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. We'll bring the Rebel form in now because the next, 3, 4 in the market all come from the Rebel. Coal Battles 4-1, Sandman 9-2, Publisher 9s, and Speed King 9s. We in the Rebel played, I think, was it Tistastic and Publisher each way? Or you played Publisher as well, didn't you?
I played Publisher.
So
yeah,
we were frustrated with it. I think Cole Battle got a very good ride on the day, and I thought the best ride won because he was the only one who chased Madaket Road, who we'll talk about in a bit, regards to the Florida Derby. But Sandman and Publisher, if you backed either of those, Tom, you were left rather frustrated.
Yeah, exactly. Cole Battle's a very cool horse. He's 5 from 5 on the dirt. His 2 defeats came on turf, and he's just super solid, isn't he? In the Rebel, as you say, the ride was fantastic. The horse was strong late in the race. I have nothing against him as such, but he's not the most sexy of horses, is he? Like you look at his profile, it's solid. The figures are solid. Connections mean that this horse will go off a decent price every time he runs, despite his career resume. I just don't love him. That's the only thing. Cool horse, but I'm happy to oppose. Sandman and Publisher are the two I think that were the most eye-catching, given they came from so far off the speed and they closed out nicely. I have one issue with Publisher, and it's not so far as his talent. I love the blinkers on as well. I love that Flavian Pratt stays on board. My issue with Publisher is that we tipped him that day in the Rebel at 20-1. He went off a lot of short price. This time around, you're going to get basically a quarter of the odds against a similar kind of field, including now a Bob Baffert firster. I just think last time was the time to bet him. And that's not saying he can't win. Of course he can. And he'll be the last off my shortlist, to be honest with you. But I'm going to be looking elsewhere. And the horse I like is the other horse that we've talked about there, Sandman. And I'll go into more detail in a second.
You say quarter the price regards to Publisher. And I agree with you. If he was 5-1, I'd prefer Sandman all day. And I'm going to be going the opposite way, but from a price perspective. At the moment, at this very moment that you're listening to this right now, and that we're talking, Publisher's 9-1. I think 9 is a great price.
Yeah.
If you were to give me a match bet and make Publisher, say, 5-4 in a match bet with Cole Battle, I would have no issue taking that 5-4.
I completely agree with that. No, I do completely agree with that. I think Publisher will beat Cole Battle here. And the 9-1 is very fair. So you're kind of getting just short than half of the odds that we had in the Rebel. But I don't think you're going to get 9-1 by the off. So it depends when you're watching this podcast. Exactly. If you watch it as soon as it comes out and the prices remain stagnant, then Publisher's a good play. But if he's a little bit shorter, then I'd be a little bit more tentative with him.
Exactly. Go tell your friends right now. Go, the Turf and Touchdowns guys. They've got value. Go do it right now, because I'll go with my selection because it is Publisher each way. I think 9-1 is a great each way bet. I think he is at the very least third best in here. I don't think there's that much between him and Sandman, and I don't think that's far from what you need to win this spot. Obviously, Cornucopian is still an unknown, albeit he looked fantastic on his debut. The form of the race, it's nothing spectacular, but the way he did it, he looked like a special individual. But Publisher, let's say, Flavian Pratt completely made a mess up of the ride last time. He waited way too long. He sat way too far back. He then went for a gap that wasn't there. and it was just ugly from almost start to finish with Publisher. He's a very good horse. Like I say, if you can get the 9-1 now, that's absolutely fine. I'd back him probably 6-1 would be the shortest I'd go, as long as he can still get the each way side of things, and the 3 places is a big help. So Publisher for me, Tom. I was delighted when you put your selection into the sort of group chat that we plan these shows for, because he was the other one on my shortlist.
Yeah, Sandman is going to be my pick. I thought he ran very well in the Rebel. I thought he ran great in the Southwest Stakes prior to that. He's a horse that seems to be improving. I love the jockey switch to Jose Ortiz. I think that's the biggest positive here for Sandman. The one question mark is, will he break on terms? Because he has been known to hop at the start or peck at the start. He's not the best from the gates, but if he can get into a rhythm, break well, find a nice spot, then I think Sandman is a big player in here. And he represents value, much like Publisher does at their current price. We're just looking to oppose this short price jolly, despite the fact he could be absolutely anything.
We absolutely are. That's a look at the Arkansas Derby. Let's move on to the Florida Derby, which has been one of the most anticipated Kentucky Derby trials of the season so far. We maybe don't have as many horses turning up here as we were hoping would turn up, but the big guns are still represented in the likes of actually the international market. Sovereignty's. I say that horse's name stupid every single time. Honestly, it's so annoying. Sovereignty.
Yeah.
Idiot. At 11-8. There was a horse a few years ago in England called Dandelion.
Yeah.
Dandelion, just normal name, right? Normal name. It's a flower. Everyone knows dandelions. Every time I looked at it, the first time in my head I went, Dandelion.
No.
It's just like,
what a mess.
But it's like the second I process it, I'm like, well, that's clearly not the word, is it?
Yeah.
Idiot. Disruptor is exactly what I've just done. 4-1 next in the market. Tappan Street is 9-2. 11-2 Madaket Road, who we mentioned a little earlier. It's 10-1 and bigger the others. Sovereignty is 11-8. We'll talk about pace first, because that does not include Sovereignty. Madaket Road, he went lightning fast in the Rebel, and I imagine he's going to do the same here.
Yeah, he's going to be up there. Bob Baffert, again, much like with Cornucopian, he just doesn't like his horses being ridden for a closing finish. He likes them being up with the speed, regardless of kind of what race they're in. So Madaket Road's almost certain to be up there. I think Neo Equus from the inside gate will also push forward. Maybe Disruptor, maybe Tappan Street, they could go forward as well, albeit they're not out-and-out front runners. They're more stalk and pounce horses. But I think they're going to go relatively hard here. I think they're going to go faster in the Florida Derby early than we'll see in the Arkansas Derby. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe 46-2 through the half, which would really set it up for a closer, but equally give the horses up front a chance of holding on, given this is a speed-favouring track.
Yeah, I mean, we'd speak about both tracks that we're talking about today. Both of them are speed favouring. Gulfstream, front runners love it. Oaklawn, I'd say front runners love it even more. But if you're with Sovereignty, you're not going to be looking at a horse who's going to be on the pace early on. In fact, the opposite. You're just going to be hoping that you can keep tabs on the front runners and stay within 6 or 7 lengths or so. Last time around, he was very good, I thought, over at Gulfstream, because it was his comeback run. We mentioned on the podcast he might well be rusty. He was, but he still managed to go and get the job done, and he looked very good in doing so.
Yeah, I think I'm number one of the Sovereignty fan club. I bet this horse for the Kentucky Derby in October last year after his victory at Churchill. I just thought he had everything that it looked like it needed to take to win or go close in a Kentucky Derby. He had course form at Churchill, deep closer, stays the trip, lovely pedigree, and should improve from 2 to 3. And he kind of, on that last point, he proved that was the case by winning the Fountain of Youth. I loved his finishing kick. He lacked a little bit of tactical nous in the middle part of the race, but I do think that was down to rustiness rather than inability to find the spot. And I just think he's a fantastic horse. I really do. I hope he wins this contest, the Florida Derby. He's drawn out in gate 10. Now, that is the one issue, isn't it? Look, he's a deep closer, so it should be fine. He should be able to just move across into a spot, especially if they go fast up front. But you just wonder, with this relatively short run up to the first turn, how deep he's going to be pitched on the bend. My other concern with him, and I think it's crucial that I air the concerns because I am such a big fan of the horse, and I will probably I am going to put this horse up as my pick of the race. But the other concern I have for him, he doesn't need to win the Florida Derby to get into the Kentucky Derby. He earned enough points in the Fountain of Youth to qualify and get into the Derby, regardless of result here. So there is a question mark about whether Bill Mott has fully tuned him up still, or whether he's leaving more and more potential improvement to come in the build-up towards the first weekend in May when he goes back to Churchill, and that would slightly kind of dampen my enthusiasm if you're taking a very short price. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if he won. I think he's got so much talent, and if they go fast up top, he will be closing strongly.
100%. That is without a shadow of a doubt his strong point. He stays all day. Look, you look at the race last time around. It was a mile on the 16th. Stepping up to a mile and an 8th is going to be a help in that regard. I do think everything regarding the Florida Derby does point towards sovereignty. Maybe hide behind your sofa for the first furlong, couple of furlongs of the race, just to make sure you're close enough. Just on a tangent, just while you were talking, I looked at the anti-post Breeders' Cup markets. Now, in America, I don't think you actually get these, but in England, you could bet in the Breeders' Cup Classic right now. What price would you make Sovereignty as we stand?
From a non-biased opinion, maybe 33 or 50 to 1, to be honest with you, because he hasn't yet proven it. If he wins the Florida Derby, he'd be a lot shorter than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's 33s in one place, 20s generally, and 16s in a place as well. So, yeah, about right, but that price is also subject to tumble. However, he does need to go through this and then go to the Kentucky Derby still. Disruptor is in here as well as a potentially a bit of a banana skin, we'll say. Look, he's had a couple of starts so far. He was beaten on his first start behind Jimmy's Dailies, who reopposes in here. But last time around, he looked very good. Iratis Jr. takes the ride. I imagine there was some sort of rule or some sort of agreement that he'd come here and ride Disruptor, because he did ride Cornucopian on debut. He's come to Gulfstream. He was already here anyway. But I would imagine there's something more that we don't see.
Yeah, for sure. Alright's going to ride for Rapoli, I think, regardless of what the situation is with Bob Baffert. I don't know which one Ortiz would like to pilot, whether it be Disruptor or Cornucopian. If you're looking at the markets alone for the two separate races, Cornucopian has a stronger chance, but equally, I think this Disruptor is very talented. When we're talking about races involving sovereignty, I wouldn't usually say I'm scared of any horse, because I hold him in such high regard. But I am a little bit scared of Disruptor. I think he is very talented. He's a son of Gun Runner, beautiful pedigree. They paid a big chunk for him. I think it was 1.4 million or something similar to that. Definitely over seven figures. And yes, he didn't win on debut, but he was sent off a very short price, took a lot of cash, and he just went way too hard early. And he's a little bit raw and inexperienced on that first run and paid for it late in the race. Last time, I thought he was excellent. I really did. And he's a horse with so much upside that he could be anything. Todd Pletcher does so well in this race. We've seen Forte and many others win for him in the past. And I think he's got a lot of ability, especially now he stretches out. So I think he's the only danger to sovereignty. And if Disruptor wins, I wouldn't be surprised. But Disruptor now has to step up from Maiden Company up to face a horse like Sovereignty and Madaket Road, who has form in graded stakes, and therefore he has to prove himself. But just watch him, because I think he's pretty talented and he could go close.
Yeah, he could easily be a Derby runner. Obviously, he needs to do something here. He needs to fire to get there, but he could easily turn up on the big day as well. Let's talk about Madaket Road, because plenty of people are sort of alluding to Madaket Road. Now, must confess, I don't like him at all in this spot.
No.
Look, I thought he ran a really good race last time around. I thought he got a great ride from Irad. I think that's as good as he is, honestly. I know last year he was quite highly thought of as well. He was started off in Grade 3 company. I don't know, I think this horse has got a ceiling, and I think he's running against a few very good horses.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. He ran okay in the Robert B. Lewis. He ran okay in the Rebel, when actually he was on the speed early and probably the only horse up there that managed to sustain his effort apart from Cole Battle. So I don't want to take anything away from him. He is a solid horse, but he's not exceptional. We know that already. I also think he's got stamina limitations. Mm-hmm. If you watch the last two runs, okay, in the Rebel they did go hard, so when the petrol light starts coming on with a furlong to go, that is understandable. But in the Robert B. Lewis, I thought he finished a bit weakly. I wouldn't be surprised if Bob drops him back to the flat mile, or maybe even 7 furlongs as we go through the summer, just purely because I don't think he's the strongest of stayers. But look, it's nice to have a Bob Baffert trainee in this race. The horse will make a little bit of the market, because Baffert horses always take some money, and that should mean you get slightly better prices on Sovereignty and Disruptor. But Madaket Road's not a player for me.
No, I completely agree. I mean, in the early races of his career, he was participating in contests where they went 44-2 early on, and he was keeping up with those. I completely agree with you that I think he's a sprinter. I could see him turning up, maybe not a Saratoga or something like that, but races of that like, where he might run over 6 and 7, and I'd be far more interested in him for those than here.
Yeah, for sure. I think dropping back in trip is the way forward with Madaket Road, but we'll see how he fares. As I say, it's just nice to have another horse in this lineup that we can give a strong mention to. Obviously, Sovereignty and Disruptor, I think, have a lot more upside than Madaket Road, but that's to be seen.
Anything else to mention before we do picks?
Nope, I think we mentioned the three horses with a chance of winning. Probably only the two of those actually have the perfect chance of winning. But yeah, this is a race that is to look forward to, but mainly due to the top of the market, not the depth in this race.
Hey, Tom.
It's time to join play.
I knew it was coming, and I was waiting for it,
Still-
and I'm happy about
Still
that.
chills. We are joint playing on this. We disagreed earlier on slightly regards the Arkansas Derby. We see this one exactly the same. I must add one thing to what Tom said earlier on about Sovereignty. He backed Sovereignty for the Derby. He also tipped Sovereignty as well. This isn't just him coming out and going, "Oh yeah, I've got a great price." He did tip a Sovereignty at 33s. I went in a little bit later at 16s, so he's still got a price, but he's, I think, 12-1 for the Derby now. Honestly, Tom, I'd back him now if you fancied him for the Derby, but I think he wins here.
I think he wins as well. I do want to caveat this by saying if he doesn't win, that would not put me off at all for the Kentucky Derby. As I say, I'm not 100% sure he's going to be fully tuned up because he doesn't need to win the race. He has enough ability to win, and hopefully he does win. But if he finishes a never near a second or third, that's not putting me off when it comes to Churchill. I'm still going to be firmly in the Sovereignty camp. And watching these Turf and Touchdowns podcasts is where you get the early shouts from myself and Luke about who we like in these big races. Disruptor, I think, is the only big player in against him in this race. With Disruptor, I would maybe 1 out of 10, I'd bet him over Sovereignty in this spot. In the Kentucky Derby, I'm with Sovereignty 10 out of 10 times, regardless of what happens in this race. I think Disruptor is well suited by Gulfstream. I don't think he'll be well suited by Churchill. It's kind of the opposite with Sovereignty, despite the fact he's already won at Gulfstream before. Churchill is much more his bag. This is a great race. I'm with Sovereignty as well. Joint play, hopefully a winner.
Yeah, I think Sovereignty. I think he's perfectly suited as well. I completely agree with you to Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby itself. So long as he doesn't get too far back, which I don't think he would, I think he'll be absolutely fine. So that's a march towards the Kentucky Derby, and that is a look at two of the Derby trials. Sovereignty for both myself and also Tom, regards to the Florida Derby and in the Arkansas Derby. I'm taking Publisher each way, is currently 9-1, and Tom is taking Sandman. You're kind of dressed in Sandman colours as well.
We've gone monochrome. I don't know what word it is. But we've kind of gone similar colours today, no?
Yeah, I'm about to mow the garden, so I've got like sport.
You've just got your legs out on the podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah.
Bum chickle.
Wrong target audience.
Cheers, Kev. Right, that is us done on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. Those are our picks. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, leave a comment, a like down below. Go check out all our other stuff as well. We've got an NFL video on the channel right now, which will tell you everything you need to know about free agency, and we'll be updating that in a few weeks' time as well as we look towards the NFL draft. But 2 races in the book from myself and Tom. Until we speak to you guys next week, stay safe, look after another. Goodbye.